that we might just start off by doing a brief tuning in meditation to get us all grounded and into the moment, into our bodies. So just kind of tuning in to your body and just asking if it wants to be shifted or adjusted in any way, just to settle in, help yourself feel more comfortable. And if you would like to either close your eyes or gently soften your gaze, and just start to become aware of what your breath is doing with no trying to control, just noticing. What is your breath like in this moment? And now as you hold your attention on your breath, offer your rib cage the invitation to expand a little bit more completely on the inhale in, and really feeling into the deep relaxation as you let that breath out. Starting to get in touch with the sensation of gravity and noticing how it gently yet firmly pulls you down into the surface that's supporting you. And just noticing all of the touch points where the chair is holding you, at your back, under your legs, the floor under your feet. And in this moment, just sitting with the notion that no matter what thoughts come and go, no matter what emotions pass through your system, this support that is underneath you is unconditional and it doesn't change. So no matter what's going on in your inside, you are unconditionally supported by these surfaces holding you up in this moment. Inhale in so that you can feel the ribcage expand in all different directions. And on the exhale out, even sacrificing your posture, just letting go, feeling that relaxation of the muscles and the bones. Starting to come back into our bodies, come back into the room, sharing this presence of this energetic space that we are all together in. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and coming back. So, what is integration? I am the integration specialist that works with the clients of the clinic who work with ketamine. So what is integration? Integration is something that people tend to think of as it's something that you do after you take a medicine to integrate the experiences. But sometimes when I like to think of integration, I like to think of sometimes the medicine itself, the journey that we take with the medicine should be acting to integrate the self-work that we're doing before, and then we do more after. So it's really, I don't like to think of it in a compartmentalized way of, oh, I'm gonna take medicine, so I gotta do 2 weeks worth of work after to integrate. It's really, we're always continuously evolving and growing and changing and bettering ourselves as human beings. So on that path, ketamine is one tool that we can use to amplify those processes. And so I'll start out by saying, just even coming into this medicine, it's important to manage expectations. And why? Because while it's true that no two people have the same exact experience as one another, even within just one client, between infusion to infusion, you can have a completely different experience. And it's all okay and it's all welcome. It's something that you can't package and deliver. This is exactly what it's gonna look like. But that's the beauty, is the surprise, what is gonna happen. And you know, I talk sometimes about the medicine, the experience that the medicine gives. It's not really the medicine doing anything. The way that I like to think of it, you know, is there's this non-porous barrier between the subconscious and the conscious mind. And it doesn't really let too much information through. And then we take a medicine like ketamine, and that barrier starts to become porous. And then the subconscious starts speaking to the conscious mind. This inner wisdom that we all have becomes activated and starts feeding the conscious mind information. Now, it's not going to send us a text message, it's not going to shoot us an email, and it's not going to give us a call on the phone. It doesn't talk in that. Nor does it necessarily talk like how I'm talking and how we would talk in everyday conversation. Raise your hand if you can ever remember any dream that you've ever had at night. Yeah, all of us, right? So the dream space, as when you think of dreaming, it can be really bizarre. Like, what was this pink elephant in a tutu riding a unicycle? What is happening? Well, that's how the subconscious mind speaks. It speaks in rhymes and riddles and images that then we get to decode. So that's part of what I do with clients, is I help to make sense of what the heck just happened in that journey. Sometimes people can get auditory messages, sometimes visualizations, sometimes just inner knowings or emotional shifts. And so we tease apart together and figure out what the heck is it that my inner wisdom is trying to say? Where is it trying to steer me? What does it want me to do next? So that's what we go over those things together and find out. Now, all different tools and techniques for this, but one tool specifically that I like to use is this tool of, okay, if somebody, if they're telling me about, again, that proverbial pink elephant in the tutu, don't throw that in the trash. It seems, it's just a silly thing. No, maybe there's something there. So one question I might ask is, when you saw that pink elephant in the tutu, how were you feeling on the inside? It could be, I was deathly afraid of it, or it was my best friend, or I was excited and I felt like a child again. But that's the deeper information. What are we feeling when we're having this experience? And so when we're talking about feelings, what kind of feelings can pop up? The whole range of human emotion can pop up during these infusions. And so there can be some really blissful states, some really ecstatic states. And I realized, you wouldn't believe the number of clients. I understood the interconnectedness of the whole universe, and we're all one, and it was so beautiful. And have some really incredible, deep, loving, ecstatic experiences. So those are very important. It's not just a fun time to go tell your friends about for the next 2 weeks. Where's the magic in that, though? If it's when I'm in the infusion, well, so what happens is every single thing that we experience, whether I smell something, whether I feel something, if I hear something, if I think about something, anything at all that I'm experiencing, there's a neural pathway in the brain that corresponds with that experience that is firing. That's just the nature of the brain. And so if I have a client come in and say they are trying to conquer symptoms of depression or anxiety, and then they have this experience of love and bliss and joy and excitement, well, there's a neural pathway that was just firing in the brain that corresponds with those beautiful feelings. So really what's happening here is the inner wisdom is deciding, I want this person to experience these feelings of joy, these feelings of bliss. It's been a long time. The inner wisdom is on the same page as your conscious mind. It wants the same thing, for you to feel well, for you to excel, to continue to evolve personally. And so it says, let's give this person the experience of bliss. So what we do with that is say, there's a fresh neural pathway that just experienced that. Now, if I were to teach you a new word in a different language right now, and you repeat it once, and then you never repeat it again, and then in 2 months I say, hey, what was that word I taught you? You say, I don't know. You're probably not going to remember. If I teach you a new word in a different language today, and you write that new word on a piece of paper, and you put it on your bedside table, and every morning you wake up and you look at it and you read it, and every night before you go to bed you look at it and you read it for 2 months, and in 2 months I say, hey, what was that word? You know the word. Why? Because you practiced over and over and over again. So what happens, that neural pathway is firing over and over and over again. It's starting to lock in. The brain is starting to say, we can make this pathway, a more permanent thing, a permanent fixture starts to take hold. And so now we have this blissful experience. Guess what? If you don't practice that, and what you've been living is in a state of despair and or worry, or you're having depressed thoughts, and you go right back to your old way of life, that blissed out state might last the rest of the day, or maybe for 2 weeks, or maybe 2 months. But if we don't do anything to consciously practice it, the brain is going to say, oh, it must not be important because we're not practicing, so we'll let it go. And it will die. It will die off. It will fade with time. And so, the good news is, I don't have to tell clients, so here's what you have to do for at least 5 hours every day to make sure this locks in. No, it doesn't have to be 5 hours a day. I like to use kind of silly examples or little metaphors. So let's just say that I need high blood pressure medication to keep me alive. And it might be like, okay, well, a tiny little pill this big, it's so small, if I drop it in the carpet, I can't even find it. How can something that small make my whole big human body stay alive? How's that possible? Well, if I take it just once, it doesn't. Nothing happens. If I down the whole bottle in one sitting, don't want to do that either. But where's the magic? I take one pill, one time, every single day. It's the consistency. And so when we transfer that metaphor to like, how do I practice the blissed out state? Well, there's so many different ways. There isn't one way to do it. And that's part of the fun of working with clients, is that I get to figure out together with them what's going to be fun for you, what's going to be engaging, what's going to feel like this is a fun process for you that you're going to look forward to doing, to present that notion to the brain over and over again so it can practice it to the emotional body. Now, again, let's just say that blissed out state coincided with that pink elephant in the tutu. Okay, that could be something as simple as revisiting the imagery just in your mind of that elephant a couple times a day. Like, all right, I'm gonna remember when I was in that blissed out state, that image of that pink elephant. Okay, you just revisit it. That you just pinged that neural pathway. And you know, there was a reason why I said put it on the bedside table, do it first thing in the morning and just before bed at night. Why? Well, because when we're just waking up and just before bed at night, our brain is in what's known as the theta state, which means it's more highly programmable. So you're getting more bang for your buck at those times. Not only that, if the first thing that I'm visiting is my goal space first thing in the day, where is my brain now more likely to go throughout the day? And if I'm revisiting this information just before I go to bed at night, well, what does my brain do at night? In the dream space, it does further processing. And so you're setting yourself up during these 2 times a day to revisit your insights, revisit emotional states, so you can help the brain to keep going there, keep practicing these states, so that it eventually becomes the new way that the brain works. Now, then it becomes a baseline. Now, I'm not saying that, so our goal is to make you blissed out 24 hours a day for the rest of your life. That's not that's not being a human being. That's not realistic. But we all kind of have this inner knowing when we're in the depths of things like depression or heightened anxiety that just won't quit, or these different things, or repetitive ruminations. Something inside, we know this is not the right baseline. We naturally know this is not where we're meant to. This is not right for me. This doesn't feel natural. We know, we can feel it. And so the goal is not to erase all human emotions, it's to have a range of human emotions that, even the difficult ones, when they pop up, we can recover, we can come back to a baseline. And the baseline is that state of, I feel pretty good in my body, I feel comfortable, I enjoy the things that I enjoy doing, I'm motivated to do the things I'm excited about. So we want to get back to that baseline. Now, also, we can have these experiences that are not blissed out and happy and joyful. People are like, whoa, I just experienced incredible amounts of anxiety or fear or pain, and oh, I was crying in that session. And I say, good, great, you got some wonderful work done, because it's not the medicine that's giving you that experience. That experience is locked away. And sometimes we're not even conscious of these things that are slowly, little by little, leaking poison into our psyche, leaking poison into our emotional bodies, into our thought processes, little by little every day, because we're stuffing down. We're all taught this. We are all born and raised into this modern day society that teaches us suppress. You don't feel good? Buy this product, purchase this service, and you should be smiling just like the people in the commercials. And if not, something's wrong with you. No. We don't want to fall into that bad conditioning. So really, we want to be facing these things, but we're not taught to face these things growing up. We're taught to suppress. We're taught to distract from. And so where does this stuff go when we distract from it? Where does this stuff go when we suppress it? Inside. And then the next thing goes on top. And then the next thing. And then before you know, it's like a pressure cooker. And so I don't know if everybody here has heard this old adage, you gotta feel it to heal it. So when it's coming up and out, it doesn't necessarily always feel like a song and dance. It can feel painful. We can have the tears, we can have the anxiety, we can have hard stuff that feels yucky coming out, and it's a celebration when that happens, because when that happens in the medicine, what's happening is you're processing that chunk out. Now, I'm not saying that if you get a big chunk of sadness out, all the sadness from your lifetime is now gone forever. But what I am saying is that chunk that you just felt and got out, that chunk is now gone forever. And this work is cumulative. And with time, you're getting chunks of stuff out that has been in there, and you're getting lighter and lighter and lighter energetically doing this work. So the happy, blissed out experiences are super beneficial, and the difficult ones are super beneficial as well. Don't need to chase either one. Whatever one is right for you, your inner wisdom will decide. And so, yeah, when we think about having these experiences in the medicine, again, managing expectations, it doesn't look like the same thing every time. It doesn't look like the same thing between people. And we want to really pay attention to different psychological functions. So we can have emotions come up. We want to pay attention to what were the emotions we were experiencing, or maybe thoughts come in. So we want to pay attention to those thoughts. Maybe bodily sensations, temperature changes. The imagination can become activated. Where is the imagination taking me? And so we get to pay attention to all of these different things. How does it manifest for you? And each time that you take the medicine, we don't know until we have the experience. So we want to pay attention to all these different things. Now, to integrate, these experiences are, again, very much like the dream state. So it's always highly recommended that you've got a pen and paper by your side and you start writing as soon as possible. Because if you think about, if you've ever had that experience where you have, whoa, I just had this crazy dream, I gotta tell you about it, but I'm gonna go brush my teeth first, and you come back, I forgot what the dream, and it just, you can doesn't happen every time, right? But sometimes. And so that can happen too. There's a lot of information. You don't have to remember everything. Sometimes there's so much information there's no way that you could anyway. But we want to retain what we can, so we write notes so that we can revisit and go back with the person who's helping us to integrate, or for our own self-work as we're going over the experience, mining the data. We want to have something to look at, something to go off of. And again, something that, like the pink elephant, it might not seem important at the time, but as we're looking at it through the days, and the insights don't only come up in the medicine journey. They can come up hours later. I think, Megan, you talk about like 2 weeks later. Oh my gosh, big insights will keep coming through, so that your subconscious is still active. It's still working even long after the infusion. that's important to remember as well, because you can still mine insights. And let's see, so yeah, now when we're thinking about these practices, I'll share a practice with you all that I personally, I designed it to be used in conjunction with this type of medicine work. So I designed something called the Trifecta Practice, and I'm going to explain the different parts of it, how it's used, and why it's beneficial. So let's just say you get a particular insight within your medicine journey. Or let's say you haven't even had the medicine journey yet, but you have a particular goal that you would like to achieve. Whatever it is that you would really like to have happen, as far as this is what I want my brain to do naturally now. So let's just say it's a particular insight that you're saying, I want to lock that in. I realized that, I have this deep realization. I want to lock it in. I want my brain to keep doing that. Okay, great. So the Trifecta practice would be, I will walk a client through, let's just say it's a transpersonal quality such as increased confidence. I had this moment in the infusion where I saw myself at a party and I was just, all my social awkwardness was gone and anxiety was gone, and I was just the life of the party. I felt good. I felt comfortable. I felt joyous. I want to lock that in. Okay, so I would ask, how do you imagine your body posture when you feel confident? What's that like? And so, I don't care if it's laying down, sitting down, or standing up. What do you imagine your body doing? And so if the person says, well, I don't know, it's just me standing at attention with my hands on my hips. Okay, great, hold that. And then I will ask, was there an image that came forth in the infusion that correspond? Yeah, it was me at the party. Okay, that image, great, we got the image. Now, were there words coming through? Was there an auditory message? If not, fine. When you picture yourself at this epitome of confidence and feeling great and no social awkwardness, what's the word that represents that? And I say, don't think about it, just what's the first thing that pops into your mind? And maybe it's just simply the word confidence. Okay, fine. So now we have three things. We've got body posture, we've got the spoken word, and we've got an image. So why did I ask about body posture? I ask about body posture because, I learned a while back about this experiment that was done with people who are highly suggestible, which just means they're easily put under hypnosis. And they took these people in as a volunteer, they're volunteering for this study. They have no idea what it's about. And the volunteers don't have anything in common other than the fact that they're easily put under hypnosis. So they're put under hypnosis, they're given one command, and one command only: close your right hand into a fist. And so they did, because they're under hypnosis. And then the people performing the experiment didn't do anything, they just sat back and watched to see what would happen. Sooner or later, the same exact thing happened with every single person. With time, their left hand started to curl up into a fist. And then their faces screwed up into these angry expressions, and their body posture started to become aggressive, getting red in the face, blood pressure going up. What the heck happened? So what happened was, the closed fist is a body posture of aggression. So for every moment that they're holding this fist, neurological feedback is getting sent to the brain that's saying aggression, aggression, danger. This person must be about to fight for their lives. So let's pump aggression hormones into the system. So if just doing this can have all those physiological reactions, then what do you suppose happens when I picture myself confident? I'm standing like this. Well, guess what? If you get in this body posture, guess what what message you're feeding to the brain? I'm confident. Now, if we take the whole idea of the placebo effect, and I'm not gonna assume that everyone, because once in a while, it's pretty well known, but once in a while I have a client that isn't really familiar with it. So the placebo effect says, sometimes if someone takes a sugar pill, just because they think it's working, the body actually heals whatever the thing is that was supposed to be happening from that medicine. So when I explain to a client, when you're doing this posture, you're pinging that neural pathway and practicing confidence in your brain, because they know that's what they're doing. Now they're amplifying the results and they're accelerating the results. So then we have the spoken word. I use a silly example. I could be walking down the street and I'm passing by someone and I either say, "You're ugly," or I say, "You've got a beautiful smile." It's a couple seconds worth of words, but I either just ruin that person's day or I put an extra pep in their step based on it's only words though. But look how powerful. Now what are they thinking of? Now are they sweating and nervous, or are they feeling good? Just from words. And so that's why I asked, what is the word? Oh, the word is confidence. Guess what? When you speak that word confidence, pinging that neural pathway again in the brain, ping. So now we're pinging it from body posture, we're pinging it from the spoken word, and I have seen research to show if you say the word in your mind, it has a neurological implication. If you speak it out loud, even more so. So if you can speak these things out loud, it has a greater neurological implication. And then the image, same thing. I use a silly example. I'm sitting down to eat a beautiful plate of food and my friend flashes a photograph of rotten garbage with maggots crawling all over it. Ugh, gross. Now I don't want to eat my food. I'm mad at my friend. I'm nervous. It's just an image. It's just a couple seconds worth of an image, but look at what happens in my brain and my physiology. Now what am I thinking? Now what am I feeling? Just an image. And so when we take this image that either the client generates with, this is how I picture myself when I'm confident, or even better, if this image has surfaced during an infusion, the power behind that is really, really great, because that was activated during this deep work when their brains are just open and their subconscious is really feeding this information and this image is coming through. So there's a lot of power. That image that surfaced during that infusion is linked to that neurology that we're trying to lock in. So now when we put that whole trifecta practice together, it takes me way longer to explain it than it takes to actually do it. It takes seconds to do. So again, I would go to that first thing in the morning and just before bed at night, because again, the brain is in the theta state at those two times. So it would literally look like, okay, I'm up, time to do my trifecta practice, okay? I've got my body posture, I've got the image in my mind, and let's just, if it's an image that you can Google and print out, or maybe it's a photograph, even better, you actually have something to look at, but just holding it in your mind's eye is fine as well. And then speaking your powerful word, you're done. Ping, 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 you just ping that neural pathway from body, from word, and from image. And so again, over and over again, doing this with time, the brain is practicing exactly what you want to have happen naturally in the brain. I like to give an example of, who here likes dogs? Anyone? Yes. So I'll tell a story about when I was staying with my cousin, and she had just brought home a puppy, an Australian Shepherd. Super high energy breed, plus it was a puppy, plus it was the highest energy of the breed. Of course, that's the one they picked to bring home, right? And so this puppy's bouncing off of the walls and getting into everything and grabbing your food and always wanting to play and nipping your ankles and just going crazy. So we're like, all right, we need to get some energy out of this puppy. What should we do? I know, we'll take her for a walk. So we take her we put her on the leash, plop. She doesn't want to go. Like, blowing our minds right now. Like, what is happening? Why is this puppy a pile of wet rags right now? Why does she not want to go for a walk? So we Googled it and we find out, puppies don't like to go on walks because it doesn't feel safe. What's out there? A predator, no food. Am I gonna get lost? My home, my comfort, my food, my family's all right here. That's scary out there. So why am I telling this story? I'm telling this story because the brain is just like that puppy. So if you have week after week, month after month, year after year, let's say you've got these ruminations and this anxiety and it doesn't feel good and it's lowering the quality of your life and it's just making things a bummer. why wouldn't the brain be like, yeah, let's stop doing that? Well, because the brain says, for all I know, this is what's been, this person is alive today. If I do anything different, what if that, one of those things was the very thing that was keeping that person alive? Anxiety has a purpose. Fear has a purpose. Anger has a purpose. And all of these original purposes, if we think about it, for the vast majority of time human beings have on this planet, we're surviving in the wilderness. So our whole entire nervous system is set up to survive in the wilderness. So when I'm in a fight with my partner, or I'm 5 minutes late to work, or somebody gave me a dirty look, all of those bad, yucky feelings, my nervous system, oh, my life is in danger. It has no idea about the modern world. And so then we get stuck in these loops. There's no signal to get out. Like, there's no tiger running away. Okay, it doesn't get the signal to stop, so we get stuck in these ways of surviving. The nervous system thinks it's helping us survive. So really, in essence, what we want to do is we want to communicate to the nervous system, hey, we're safe. You don't have to do this anymore. We're safe. So one way to do that, it's just the thoughts, right? Thoughts can feel unsafe. Oh, this person doesn't like me, or oh, I got in a fight, or oh, my boss is not. Those are all unsafe thoughts. Now, sometimes we need these thoughts because we can investigate them, and we can find out, like, oh, yeah, my partner's mad at me, but I promised I was going to do the dishes for the 5th night in a row, and I didn't. Okay, so then there's something you do. Other times it's like, oh, this thought of, oh, that thing that happened in 5th grade that was so embarrassing. Well, that's not helpful. So these are the kind of thoughts that we want to switch, we want to change. So to create safety, we can see, sometimes we have these repetitive thoughts, and they're so commonplace. Sometimes we take a medicine like ketamine, and then it shows us, look at what you've been thinking, and we say, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize. So it can surface for us these unsafe patterns of thinking, or these ruminations. Now, even with that, again, there is a neural pathway that's firing. So we choose a practice, even the Trifecta Practice. Well, you might not stand like this in the line of the grocery store and say something out loud, but you can do it in your head. You have these little anchors, you have these little practices to interrupt these messages that the brain is getting, that the nervous system is getting, that we are unsafe. And we want to flip that into, we want to teach the body, teach the mind, teach the emotions. We are safe now when we are safe. And so other things that I will do, because all of this, we don't have to tackle this all through the psyche either. Because in my personal process for decades, I tried to tackle all of this through the psyche. And there's other things happening as well. Just if we think about, for example, in the modern day world, I'm always a little bit bent over. A steering wheel, a plate of food, a screen, a keyboard. Oh, just no big deal, right? Well, yeah, it is a big deal, especially if I have anxiety or depression, because what happens is the rib cage is getting pulled down. My belly is soft and it houses vital organs. So now if I pull my rib cage down, sending a signal to my brain, oh, Julie's protecting her vital organs. She must be about to be attacked by a tiger. So there's different, so we learn to hold ourselves differently. It's not all about convincing the mind that when the body is playing a part too. So we learn these different things. Also work with the vagus nerve, which runs the length of the body and innervates with, now when we stimulate the vagus nerve, it can dampen the nervous system, giving the body the message, I'm safe. So there's a simple tugging on the ears and an ear massage we could do that will actually stimulate the vagus nerve, which then calms down the nervous system. Is it going to fix everything one time? No. But if you get in the habit of doing this when you're stressing every day, over and over and over again, you are telling the body, you're giving the body message, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. And so also talk about the difference between willpower and skillful will. I don't know, you guys know psychosynthesis. So, we've all heard about willpower. Like, oh, I'm on a diet and I just have to use my willpower not to eat donuts every day for whatever it is. So willpower is great and it can be used effectively but sparingly. Willpower is not meant to be used all the time. You will burn yourself out and then you get frustrated because it's not sustainable. It's something only to be used in fits and spurts. So that's where the skillful will comes in. And so I'll help clients in their integration process to integrate these things and to choose practices in a skillful way that will make it enjoyable to do. And so, for example, let's combine the skillful will with the example I used with the Australian Shepherd puppy that didn't want, so the brain doesn't want to change, right? And so if we use willpower and say, I'm going to do my trifecta practice. There's plenty of clients, yeah, I like doing the trifecta practice. And I did it for a week, I did it for 2, and then they're, I didn't do it anymore. And then the judgments, the self-judgments come in. I'm lazy, or it's not going to work, or I don't want to do it anymore. And I would say, oh, all those thoughts, that's the goal. That's the brain trying to get you to stop doing it. Why? Because it can feel that it's changing and it doesn't want to do it. So the willpower is like, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to force myself. And then you burn out, or you just say, forget it. It just feels like, or the skillful will says, wait a minute. I know. I've been educated to the fact that my brain is going to make sure that I don't do this right before it's about to change. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in place, there's a million different things that you can do to enact the skillful will, but one thing, for example, you could get a chart, sticker. I'm going to put a sticker every day that I do my practice. And then next thing you know, you're looking at, well, I got to get my sticker. You're not even thinking of, that's just a daily practice. Did it. It's a skillful will. I know I'm going to get my sticker, so I'm going to do it, and it's just going to happen. I don't think about it. It's already set up. Or, the skillful will would be like, instead of, I just have to remember to do my practice every day. And I keep going back to the trifecta practice. It doesn't resonate with everybody. It's not a one size fits all. All I care about is that in people's integration work, they're doing something consistently. It doesn't have to be one specific thing, but something to present to the psyche on a daily basis, the change that you want to be locking in. And so, again, either just waking up and winging it and, I forgot today, but maybe tomorrow I'll remember, or the skillful will be, I don't have to remember because I have it written down. So that just takes away the effort because it's right there, it's already planned out. Or the skillful will would be something like, for example, if I've decided that it's best for me to take a walk first thing in the morning and just power through, and I gotta get my cigarette. Skillful will might be something like, and so what I do the night before is I got my sneakers right beside the bed, and I got my shorts and my t-shirt that I'm gonna walk. It's all set up, so I just grab it. It's right there. I don't even think about it. So that's taking away the need to power through because it's already halfway done for you. So things like that. And so I really wanted to leave some time for questions. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to jump in.
You talk like Bliss is a normal component if you have a ketamine treatment. And I've had maybe 12 infusions. I've not had anything with Bliss or anything like it.
Yeah. Hence why I say to manage our expectations, because they're different for everyone. And even so, would you feel comfortable sharing what yours have been like?
What has it been like?
What your experiences have been like?
I don't know how to summarize it.
But no bliss.
No bliss.
Okay.
No, but nothing terrible either.
Okay. And what about, was there any insights that came through that were like, I didn't see things that way, or any revelations for you?
Well, I made some big changes in my life, but it was only afterwards that I kind of implemented them, because they did coincide quite well with the ketamine experience, so I did make some big changes.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that, because a lot of times when we think about psychedelic drugs, we can think of, it's gonna be this trippy, I'm gonna see all these colors. No. it's nice if some fun or some blissful things happen, but that's not why we come here. Bliss is for living in our day-to-day life. We don't want to come to use this medicine to hopefully get a really cool experience. It might happen, it might not, but that's not the goal. And I'm so happy to hear that your experience was you did start connecting the dots and putting things together and get motivation to do things. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm so glad that you had that experience. And thank you for sharing, because it's important, because I don't want anyone to think like, oh, what did I do wrong? Or maybe I didn't prep right, or how come that happened for that? It's different for everyone, and that's okay. It's the end goal of the life-changing after. That's the most important thing to have happen. Thank you for sharing.
Can you practice integration without doing ketamine infusions or being involved in psychedelic medicine?
Absolutely, absolutely you can. So I can get an insight from a ketamine journey. I can get an insight from talking to a friend. I can get an insight in a therapy or a coaching setting. I can get motivated because I saw a really cool movie and I want to be like the guy in that movie that was a superhero. So it can be integrating is not just what we get out of a medicine. It's like, what do we want to integrate into our lives? If we think about integrating, what do we want to infuse into our lives so that it becomes the day-to-day part of our life instead of just a cool experience that we talk about once in a while? So good question. Yes.
How would you suggest someone were to integrate a very challenging infusion or experience?
Yeah. So to integrate the very challenging experience, first and foremost, to have that inner sense of, wow, I just got through that. I just did some really good work. And so always the first go-to is when something uncomfortable or difficult happens, whew, I got that, whoa, that was inside me, celebrating that you got it out. And then also, there can be this inner judger, right? Because we're all kind of also in this society taught like, don't have difficult emotions, and if you have them, just pretend that you don't or hide them, because it's not, we're not really taught to express these things. And for many of us, we were taught to not only not express them, but to be ashamed of them. And so when we have these difficult emotions coming up, it's always in our best interest to cultivate kindness, compassion, validation for that part of the self that is feeling that. So not like, darn it, I had a rough journey, or darn it, I cried, or darn it, I was frustrated and angry. That's not what I want. It's like, oh, there's a part of me that's angry. There's a part of me that's frustrated right now. How kind, how loving, it needs support. And if we think about these parts of the self, really, as a little 2-year-old kid that you love and adore, you can't go wrong. That's how you want to treat it, how you would treat a little kid who's in pain, who's scared, who's hurt. How would you treat that small child? And I use a silly example too of like, a mom washing the dishes, and then we gotta be out the door because the kid has a play date, and the little kid, Mommy, I wanna help, and she's like, ugh. No, there's gonna be suds everywhere and broken dishes, but she's not gonna be like, you little jerk, you can't help, what are you, stupid, you too? No, that's not how we're gonna say. We're gonna explain. What does that child want? It wants to help mom. It really wants to help. So these parts of ourselves, they just want to help. They're just experiencing something. We get to be kind. So you can never go wrong with whatever part of yourself pops up. If you treat it as you would an adored little child, you can never go wrong, including these difficult experiences. Having that love, having that compassion, having that time and space to give it attention rather than, right? Because that's also what a little kid is hurt, or our little kid is, I'm scared. We don't want to, you're scared? Well, I'm going to ignore you and scroll on my phone, and I'm going to make a phone call. I'm going to listen to, no, the little kid is going to feel abandoned. Well, we don't want to do that to ourselves either. Like, something, fear is coming up, pain, anger. It wants to be worked with. So we get to guide it. We get to be with it. We get to comfort it so that it can transmute rather than When we distract from, it doesn't go anywhere out there, it stays right in here. On top of the next thing and the next thing.
I got a question. When you're actually in one of the treatment sessions, how long are you in it for?
45 minutes.
Oh, okay, so it's,
Yeah.
because I know I played around with psychedelics or whatever, and sometimes that could be 5-6 hours. So I didn't know if it was, that long or if it was just something like that.
It's about 45 minutes, but as you know, if you work with psychedelics, it can feel like
Oh, yeah.
a lot shorter or an eternity, because
Yeah.
time gets distorted, but the actual time is about 45.
Oh, okay.
The esketamine, you have to stay 2 hours.
What's that?
Esketamine, there's a required 2 hours. stay.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I think you're talking more about like the actual
Yeah,
experience.
just the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course staying later, nobody wants you to be driving or anything like
And
that
then
after.
one
Yeah.
more. I was actually watching something on the way here, and there was 2 different places. I mean, not around here or anything, but just different type of sessions. And one was just, IV needle right in the arm, or mixed in with like an IV bag. Which, like, is there ones that you guys do, or?
So, I can answer. We do IM and, IM like an injection or an intravenous.
Oh, okay.
IM would be 1 injection and then we would wait like 15-20 minutes later.
10 minutes.
10 minutes, and then we do the other injection on the other arm.
Okay.
Intravenous, 45 minutes altogether.
Okay.
And we'll be here to answer questions if you have some.
All right.
Anybody else?
Hi.
Hi.
Do you find as a integration therapist
So integration specialist, I am not a
Specialist.
therapist, so I just
Specialist.
want to make that
Yeah.
distinction.
so hence the question, distinctions, like the distinction of bliss, the distinction of integration, and really getting clear on what those distinctions are when speaking with a client? Do you have that as a practice? Because if I just use the word responsibility in the room, I watch half the people go, and the other people go, what does, I haven't experienced bliss. What is bliss? Do you find that asking those questions of your patients or your clients
Yeah.
during the session and getting clear on those things helps, or how do you work with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Adam, because you're right. Like, what is bliss? It's just like the ketamine journey. What is the ketamine journey? It's different for everyone, right? So exactly. We want to get clear on what does that mean to the client? What does bliss? Okay, you experience bliss. What does that mean? And then tease that apart so that because when we think about sometimes doing this self-work, we have to work on all the dark stuff and all the stuff that's painful. It's like, well, we get to explore the light too, because when we're talking about this work of stuff that's in the shadow, we think of like these difficult, challenging things, but also there's the golden shadow, these hidden talents and passions, and so to more deeply explore them. And I love your question because it kind of opens up this notion of really teasing apart and exploring the beautiful things that we are also trying to cultivate and defining those. And if we don't even feel comfortable going to them, well, then we're not giving them attention. And then how do they grow? Well, yeah. So when we work with our clients, having them describe bliss, getting them in that whole mentality and in that emotional state of really exploring the beautiful things too. So that's where their focus is, and that's what then expands for them. And I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah.
Is that
Like allowing it to blossom into,
Allowing it to
what
blossom.
the meaning is for the individual.
and kind of guiding them to like, it's okay to explore this stuff. It's okay, because that's what your question makes me think of, is just how many times we're like, all right, let's do the hard work and let's grind and let's figure it, but this is what's making me sad and this is upsetting and this is the hard stuff. Let's give attention and let's explore the light stuff too. Because at the end of the day, most people are trying to cultivate more of that when they come to this medicine, not because they want to get more in touch with their dark side. They're usually pretty already good with that. So yeah.
Anybody else?
Good.
I think it's very important, and you've certainly facilitated that and become a catalyst. You really are a catalyst and a facilitator. The hard work comes from us that are going through the infusions.
You got it.
Let me explain that a little further. The intentions up front have to be very well thought through. And then, after you got your intentions down with some discussion with you and others, then the hard work comes in. Okay, then those visions, those words, those feelings of bliss or not, how do those relate during the experience
Yeah.
to your intentions?
Yeah.
And linking those, okay, making that link is hours and hours of work. It's
Yeah.
having a journal by your side. It's at 2 p.m. you say, oh geez, I now understand why there was a concert hall
Yeah.
and I was the only one in a concert of 150,000 people. What does that mean?
Right.
But that work, you can help us, right? Guide us there, but we have to get ourselves there. And that's hours. And hours of good work, actually,
Yes.
because it's worth it.
It is worth it, and it's so empowering, isn't it? When you do the work and you realize, I have such a responsibility, and I can make these shifts, and it just builds the person's confidence. When it's really a lot of what this medicine helps people to do is step into their power. Like, wow, I have all this power to shift my thoughts, to shift my perception of the world and myself and my experience.
If you contrast the ketamine therapy with mushroom infusion therapy,
Sure, that's a really good question.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
So sure, he asked me to contrast
Oh, okay.
ketamine with working with psilocybin mushrooms, so psychedelic mushrooms. So how I actually became an integration therapist, I've been sitting in plant medicine ceremonies for about a decade now for my own personal work. So I've sat with many different medicines personally. And while they all have their different experience, their different flavor, their different mode of ingesting, and their visuals can be more this way for this one and less for the on and on. I'll tell you what, the one thing that I found that all of these medicines have in common is it's bringing it back to that non-porous barrier in between the subconscious and the conscious mind. It becomes porous and information starts to pass through. And so, for all the, of course, like a psilocybin journey would last much longer. One thing that I noticed with ketamine is that even sometimes, I'm not going to say that you can't have a difficult journey, but it's just a lot more gentle than some of these other medicines that are used ceremonially. It's a lot more gentle, a lot less, can be a lot less jarring. The timing too.
If I could add just one other thing.
Sure.
You talked about blood pressure before, right? And you have qualified medical professionals during the infusion period.
Yes.
And there are some individuals whose blood pressure will rise quite high. And if you're doing an ayahuasca ceremony or you're going out to New Mexico and doing psilocybin, there is nobody to neutralize
You're not on a blood pressure
a
pump.
dangerous,
Yeah.
dangerous high blood pressure situation.
Yeah.
And you have that here. That's huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. And sitting in a ceremony around a fire all night long under the stars, to me that's great, but that's not for everybody. For some people this feels comfortable. So it's great to know that if this setting is what makes someone comfortable enough to have such an experience, and that's beautiful because it can reach more people.
Anybody else?
You were saying before, and I agree with you, like any experience can trigger transformation and we could integrate it.
Yep.
But I think the special part of ketamine and the plant medicines is that it creates neuroplasticity, where it gives us, for me, that opportunity. It's almost like a clay, you can shape it, as opposed to when we're in our normal adult brains, that neuroplasticity is a little more challenging,
More rigid, yeah.
more practice. But I think after the ketamine, the studies are clear, you could learn languages, you could learn new instruments a lot quicker and transform yourself in the way you want to and into a healthy and well lifestyle. So I think that's the advantage of it.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of, I think of it like a kid on a swing and the parent behind giving it a push. You know, these medicines, they can give you the push, but then don't forget, and then at a certain point, the parent runs away and the kid starts pumping and gets, but you're right, it can give you that extra push neurologically speaking. Absolutely, good point.
Anybody else?
I just have one thing to add, kind of what you were sharing in there. There's a lot of different, studying for 3 decades, 4 decades, 3 decades at this point with working with medicines. If I go sit down and I put 3.5 grams of penis envy mushroom in my mouth and don't think I'm gonna have some kind of a blood pressure shift, I'm joking myself, because my ego and my amygdala is gonna say, I'm not safe, I need to constrict. Constriction equals blood pressure rise. So just being really gentle with exploring and making sure to do your own research on these things of like, am I gonna go sit down with a shaman in Peru and chug, 3 doses of ayahuasca right out of the chute? Especially if I have a pre-existing condition.
Right.
Or do I go and create what they would say in shamanism as a dieta and get to know the medicines that we're working with anything? I'm not gonna go drink a shot of espresso, give it to a 5-year-old, because what's gonna happen? He's gonna be like that German dog running around. So, yeah, because blood pressure in working with any of these plants is a concern, because when fears and I'm not safe come up, the blood pressure
The
does
body
rise.
responds, yeah, the body
And that is a
responds.
natural defense mechanism, or like heightened awareness, like adrenaline starts to pump in. So being able to have that set and steady, and being able, like you said, having somebody who's actually sitting, administering medicine that you feel safe with and welcoming you into a relaxed place, to then have that be your intention,
Yes.
relaxation,
Yes.
and carry through the medicine. So I
Yep.
just wanted to share that because that came up here.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you, Adam.
I think his point about the difference, and asking about the differences between, say, psilocybin and ketamine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also, I've done psilocybin, so I feel like, maybe the next thing for me is ketamine, but I heard that it's a different part of your, like, isn't it glutamate versus something else, or?
That is a question for the clinician.
Okay.
What was I gonna say about that? Oh geez, I had it and I lost it. Yeah. When it comes to chemical structures of these things, I always refer to the clinicians, because I'm more the integration side. Darn it, I had something that I was gonna comment and I just forgot it, but maybe it will come to
Do you
me.
coach differently if somebody's done psilocybin versus ketamine? Is there a different
That's a great
approach?
question.
It's a different process. Just like Ibogaine, just like MDMA, I believe Sonia can say it better. I guess why don't you, you're the clinician.
There you go.
We got you out there, Sonia.
Sonia Cotto, ladies and gentlemen, Sonia Cotto.
So I don't know with psilocybin, but Adam, if you want to say the
Yeah, it
receptors
really
that
works
works.
with dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. Those are the pumping, and then also, the receptors are more, they're firing, so it's giving you higher conductivity of these chemicals, and not only is it increasing them, but also saying, ooh, I can actually receive more of these that are pumped out.
But that's specifically
Psilocybin.
This psilocybin. With ketamine, it works directly. There's so many receptors that it actually has activity on, but the primary is NMDA, which works on glutamate, which is the #1 neurotransmitter in the brain and the spinal cord. It controls everything in your body, your motivation. It actually controls everything. But as far as like in depression, for example, or chronic stress, when we're chronic stress and in our whole lives, trauma, all of that, our glutamate with our stress hormones get depleted, right? So that's where you get the lack of motivation in the front of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. That's our personality, our ego, our motivation, our goals, our aspirations. Who you are as a person is in the front of the brain. And when you don't have enough glutamate, it just starts to deplete in your personality and just dims and the connections, all that. And that's where the depression lies. With ketamine, you block that receptor. So all of a sudden you have an influx of glutamate. And in the glutamate, that is where in the front of the brain you get increased energy, motivation, personality, and just more activity for you to be able to do the things that I coach about creating a happy list, right? She's saying like emphasizing when you have bliss, doing more things that are blissful in your, that's gonna be, I always thought that happy list was a stupid name,
It's gonna be a bliss list.
There you go, Bliss list.
And I remember,
Bliss.
thank you, because that's, yeah. I remember I was gonna say, so all this good information that Sonia has, my brain doesn't work that way, so it doesn't grab onto those things. However, I will say this, having come from a background of, again, sitting in these sacred ceremony spaces, and then linking up with this clinic, and then inviting me in for my first infusion, in my mind, I was like, all right, well, I'm in this clinical setting. There's scrubs, there's a needle, white walls, no fire. I bet you this will be relaxing. The depths that my mind went to, the depth of the experience blew me away. I did not see it coming. So that's why I said, it's all the deeper level, the spiritual implications, or the personal implications of what comes through. That's what these things for me all have in common, and that's why I do this work. That's what I get excited about, and that's why she does what she does, because all that stuff is like.
No, it's beautiful
Goes
to
one
be
in here,
able
out
to,
there.
because that's what ketamine does, and all the psychedelics really allow you to just separate your ego and just kind of go within yourself into the subconscious mind, and that's how ketamine works as an anesthetic. You know, it separates, your body stays awake, your mind stays awake, it just severs the connection at the limbic system of the brain for your sense of reality in this current space. So you get deep within yourself.
And I'll share a fun fact, just that I thought was really interesting. You know, back in the day, soldiers on the battlefields, they carry anesthetic with them in case they get a grave injury. And they were noticing the ones that were carrying ketamine, well, their rates of suicide were much lower than the ones who had other anesthetics. And so that's one of the ways that this got discovered. Like, whoa, this has implications for treatment-resistant depression.
There's a comment I did, this is from a while back, but I heard the term plant medicine mentioned, and I think it's important to say that ketamine is not plant medicine.
Correct.
It's manufactured medicine.
It's
And it's a good
manufactured.
argument against plant medicine being sort of inherently virtuous and not poisonous, and manufactured things being not as good as things that nature makes. That's not true, at least in this case.
Yeah, correct.
I always say it's synthesized from the hydrogen from the Big Bang and from the stars. The rest of the molecules are from stars that exploded, so that's as good as nature as I can get for myself.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and to what they were talking about, being kind with the medicine. A lot of people, you know, when they come in, they have this expectation with ketamine. It's 6 infusions over 4 weeks. And we don't start with your ideal dose. We dose up. When you're going into your first infusion, it's all about the set and setting and your mindset, and it's all about integrating. We talk about journaling. We talk about being kind to yourself and how to approach the medicine, right? You go into your first infusion, and it's a very low dose. It's very small. And some people are like, well, why don't you just blast me off. Just take me to where I need to be. You are not ready for that mentally. If you were exposed to what you were, I would never see you after the first appointment. So you aren't ready for that. You know, it's important with any type of medicine, especially to go deep within yourself, is to just use it. I always say, like, peel it like an onion, right? Just take each layer off, and you're like, oh, okay, that was interesting. Okay, get more curious, get more curious. So when you get to that point, when you are at your ideal dose, you're ready for it, and you've been prepared, and you've been working with Julie, and you've been journaling, and you've been doing the Bliss list, and you've been, you know, doing all these things for yourself and therapy, that you're ready for that dose.
Yeah, one of the things that people confuse is that, well, I used to do Special K and I used to do all this stuff, and you know, what's this going to be any different? Well, it is different because the whole mindset is different. You get incremental dosages, so you work your way up, and you have somebody coaching you and giving you direction. The other way we get high. I mean, I did every drug known to man. I'm a recovering addict myself, and it's not like that here. And if you notice, if after this we go back into the rooms, everything is mellow, everything is focused. I always ask people, how well do you want to be? How much work do you want to put in? That's as well as you're going to be. It's like training. You know, I'm a martial artist. You know, if a guy wants to be good at something, okay, you want to be great, you got to work harder. It's business, anything. You know, everybody wants a quick fix. This is not a quick fix. So I want, and I think we've been saying that over and over again. This is your brain, and what you're doing is you're retraining your brain Remember, if you told a kid every minute of the day, you're gonna be a failure, you're gonna be a failure, you're gonna get this, that's what's gonna happen. And think about the self-talk that you tell yourself. Think how many times you broke your word to you, never mind anybody else. Those are the things that you have to change, and it takes time. It took time to create that, and it takes time to change that. One of the things I wanted to bring up just briefly, because most people don't talk about it, what we look at here is the core of what's driving depression and anxiety. It's not just psychological. You can have a low thyroid, you can have a leaky gut syndrome, H. pylori infection, you can have low testosterone, all the hypoglycemia, closed head injuries, all of these can be precursors for addiction, depression, and anxiety. Most people don't even look at that. They always think it's, oh, I got traumatized when I was, yeah, that's all part of it. But what we do here, we do our best to look at everything with you. And we suggest you do whatever, just like we do micronutrient testing. Now we can give you nutrients that really help you, but if you want to, how deep do you want to go? Okay, it's up to you. And that's as deep as we go with you. I just wanted to bring that up because quite often you don't talk about this stuff. You're training your brain. You want to be a champion? You have to train. You can't just say, oh. It's like going to the gym for a month and say, okay, I'm in shape, and that's it. No, that's why we offer boosters. Maybe once a month, maybe 3 months, every 6 months, everybody's different. You're training your brain.
I found that my biggest challenge wasn't the experience of taking ketamine. It wasn't integrating right afterwards, because you have this like real sense of like peace and confidence and stuff. And it was months later when I was normal, and I never experienced normal before without like constant self-hate. And then that was gone, and then I was like, well, all those skill sets that I learned to deal with my self-hate and how to interact with people and how to go about things was like no longer valid. And that's where I find myself now, where I'm trying to figure out what was I doing because it was fun versus what was I doing because it was an escape, and then trying to sort through those things I find the most challenging.
It makes me happy that you have that problem.
Sounds like life.
Happy, no, that's amazing. Yeah. And you know, you get to feel into it. And you know, coming back to, I know the answer. How do you know? You feel it. Just like when I coach people, I don't have any of the answers. I'm trained to help the clients get their own answers. And so you have them inside, you know, you feel into it. And you just take it one by one and you feel, does it hurt? And you'll know.
Yeah, I've been trying to do that lately, where I go, why am I doing this? If I'm doing this to
That's
feel
the
good
word.
and just have a great day, that's cool.
Perfect.
But if I'm doing this to escape something, what am I trying to escape?
That's beautiful self-care. And then, yeah, what am I trying to escape? What is it? And then you give that
I mean, I definitely
attention.
get some bumps along the way.
That's allowed. You're always allowed to.
Any other questions, anybody?
Good work.
Well,
Proud of you.
Thank you, Julie.
Before you guys leave, if you want to see the center and see what it's like and feel the energy in there, because to me it's all about energy. It's the same with them. You know, I'm Italian, so I'm a very loud mouth in a way, so I had to be very quiet when we came into here. You know, to me,
had to train
regular
him.
talking was loud.
You still have to tell him to be quiet.
I do my best.
He's a very passionate man.
Well, thank you all for coming, and we really appreciate it. And come see the center and just walk through it, and then.
Whatever, just don't ask me. You run the show.
I run the show, you just film?
I have 7 hours to record the speaker. That's it.
No, but this is mine.
Anybody wants shirts? We got shirts here for you.
About the ear and the posture.
Hey, come this way, come here.
mediums, and then we don't have, this is the only large, these colors, the large. It's like, and this is the medium that
I wasn't like so far. But now it's like, okay.
Large with the brain, here you go. Fresh brain. There you go. Mediums were all out. We have this.
Yes.
One with the medium.